Going on, people? It is Chris here, back in the building with the Super Bowl 55 review. So, as you guys know, Super Bowl 55 was played on Sunday night at Raymond James Stadium, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came out victors against the defending champion, the Kansas City Chiefs, on that night. Buccaneers won 31-9, which, practically speaking, it was a blowout, even though the fourth quarter turned out to be a scoreless fourth quarter for that matter. But truth be told, that the damage was already done at that point. However, I'm going to give my review of the game, and give a couple of things that we kind of learned from that game, because I'm going to start off with point number one, because I genuinely think that Tom Brady, for all you guys that kind of hate on him, kind of have supposed jealousies or any allegiances for or against him, pretty much he has put the rumours, he has put all the doubts to bed. The fact that he was supposedly one of those system quarterbacks under his old partner, Bill Belichick. He has proved everyone wrong and won a Super Bowl with an NFC team, joining Peyton Manning, who also won 2 Super Bowls with different franchises. In the case of Peyton Manning, he won his first Super Bowl, which was Super Bowl 41 with the Colts back in 2007. And in his final season, Manning won Super Bowl 50 with the Denver Broncos in 2016. But this time, Brady has emulated Manning's feat and has won it not only with 2 separate teams, but in both conferences of the league. So you could arguably state the claim that he has trumped Manning in that aspect. Next up, do I really need to talk much more stats apart from the fact that Brady has gone to 10 Super Bowls in his career, won 7, even though he lost 3 against 2 NFC East teams in the form of the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll kind of put the argument to one side about supposedly being a choker or not being able to perform in the big game, but I'll rest the case on that side for now. But to me, the fact that he's won more Super Bowls than any other team in the league's history kind of just says that arguably I think he's possibly the greatest quarterback to actually play in this league. But I'll let that discussion go to you guys. If you want to put in the comments below about what you think about Tom Brady, then leave a comment in the description below about whether you think he's the greatest or not. But that's a story for another day. Next up, penalties. The one time you don't want to give away penalties is in the biggest game of your life, and unfortunately the Chiefs did that, and arguably at costly moments. And once again, because you could argue that if the game was rigged, yes, I've heard those talks a million times before, and I'm not trying to defend Tom Brady here, can I just say, but I'm just saying though that I don't think games are actually that rigged. But I think it was Jim Nantz that said on CBS though that Carl Cheffers and his crew of referees, they do like to throw more flags more often than not in comparison to the rest of the NFL's referees. However, I don't think there were some calls that were actually justified in that game, because on that scoring drive prior to the end of the first half, where the Chiefs arguably got hard done by 2 defensive pass interference calls, I genuinely do not think that they were DPIs, considering that what we had in the 2018 NFC Championship game, where that was a daylight DPI call against the New Orleans Saints when they played the Rams that time. I don't think they were as clear cut, and for me, I don't, particularly on the first defensive pass interference call, I don't think that Mike Evans would have had a chance, even if he wasn't interfered on his running route. But the fact of the matter is, the game's over now. We've just got to live it down in history. But for me, you could argue that the Chiefs were a bit hard done by the refs on that Sunday night's game. Next up, Patrick Mahomes played that game kind of hurt, and he kind of said in the aftermath of that game that that was arguably one of the worst defeats he has taken in his career, even going back to his college football days. And I have to admit, though, I do kind of feel bad for the guy, the fact that he lost, but I'm afraid that there's a times, though, and a lot of English football fans or soccer fans, if you want to try and ride me, any American fans that are watching this video, but same time, though, you got to deal with injuries. It's part and parcel of the game. Even though Mahomes didn't have his usual starting left tackle for the game, but when you're defending titles, as time goes on, your squad gets older and older. Injuries are more likely to pile up every time, but you just got to learn to deal with it and take it on the chin, really, and move on. But even then, Mahomes, I think, played out of his skin, except there were the odd one or two occasions where his receivers did drop the odd one or two passes, which ultimately did come back to bite the Chiefs. But whether that actually did enough in the grand big picture of the game, I don't think so, because I think the Buccaneers, they did what they had to do, walked away with the win. That's it. Nothing more that could need to be said. Excuse me a moment. But moving on to my next point, the Chiefs, receivers wise, could they have let Mahomes down? I think maybe, actually, because thinking about it, you had Kelsey had a big game, 10 receptions off 133 yards, but he was targeted 15 times all night. Hill didn't really have much of an influence of the game, but even then, you guys could argue that the Buccaneers, their defensive game plan was pretty much solid, and Todd Bowles' defense actually did a pretty solid job against Patrick Mahomes all night, making sure that Hill's influence on the game was practically speaking negated the whole time. So Bowles, well played to you, mate. Even though he hasn't had the best of head coaching careers so far, obviously I'm kind of like hoping for Todd Bowles to actually have a decent head coaching career at some point whenever he decides he wants to go back into a head coaching role. But last but not least, can the Buccaneers actually come back in Super Bowl 56? And yes, that is a bit far-fetched, my comment. However, can they come back into Super Bowl 56 this time, well, nearly this time next year in Los Angeles, and potentially go back-to-back? I don't know, because given the salary cap at this moment in time, which is going to likely to decrease following the loss of revenues, the loss of fans, which I don't know if the NFL has released, and I don't think they've released the current salary cap yet, but it's likely to be lower than in 2020. However, Mike Evans has given the Buccaneers a bit of reprieve, saying that he is willing to take a pay cut for the season, but there are a whole host of free agents that could enter the market and potentially unravel the Buccaneers' title defence before the next season starts, which is in September. However, the likes of Blaine Gabbert, Brady's backup quarterback, even the likes of Godwin, Antonio Brown actually will also enter free agency if the Buccaneers don't happen to tie him down. LaShawn McCoy, who we all know had his epic run at the Buffalo Bills, but now is a Buccaneer. And on the defensive side of things, you got Ndamukong Suh, who's actually a very good defensive lineman, even though he's had his issues with discipline in the past and he's gotten into a few tussles. However, he's kind of ironed those out, and I have to admit, he really has done this season. Even Levante David, as one of their premier linebackers, he too could be hitting the free agency market. So there's quite a lot of players, in theory, that the Bucks could lose this offseason if they fail to happen to tie them down. And even Ryan Suckup, their kicker, who actually had a very good night, going 5 for 5 with 4 extra points and a field goal that field goal came in the second half, even though you could argue that he didn't do anything that game. But in the grand picture of things, come Super Bowls, sometimes ultimately your kickers can win you games. Can win you games, I should be saying, particularly early on in Tom Brady's career, where we saw with Adam Vinatieri helping him to win 2 Super Bowls, which was Super Bowl 36 and Super Bowl 38. But kickers in the NFL, they're kind of hard to come by these days. So maybe even Ryan Suckup, holding on to him, would prove to be a valuable asset for the Buccaneers going forward if they were to defend their Super Bowl title. But on that note, guys, thanks for watching this video. That is kind of the 5 main things that I kind of learned from that game and things we could potentially take forward going into the 2021 NFL season, which restarts in September. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, guys, don't forget to check in on your friends and your family. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, then please do so right here. And until next time, guys, peace out.